Welcome to the Lifepro podcast, where today I have Erin Manning, who is a lifelong promoter of lifelong wellness. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Thank you so much for having me. Very
Great.
excited.
Likewise, I'm really interested in the topic that we're going to talk about. But before we get into that, why don't you start out by telling everybody about yourself?
Sure. Well, my interest in this subject began uh, in childhood. Um, my father instilled a lot of interest when I was younger and taught me everything I know about nutrition. And that passion that was cultivated when I was young grew over the years. And I chose to study clinical nutrition in school, get my degree. I was a personal trainer for a long time. I worked for a holistic doctor. Most recently, I was a nutrition consultant and an x-ray technician in
Great.
the wellness field.
Fantastic. So one thing that's kind of a hot topic for a lot of people in my age range, everybody's talking about a diet. What diet are you on? I hear keto, I hear, a big one is intermittent fasting. But what is actually the word diet? What does that mean to you?
I'm very glad you asked this question. I believe diet is anything you intake. So this goes far beyond macronutrients, calories. It's what you consume every day. Um, so that's not just your food, that's your thoughts and your attitudes towards the food you consume, your thoughts and your attitudes towards yourself, the world around you, um, the media you take in. That is all part of your diet.
And how much of your diet, what you eat affect how you feel?
Mhm.
All of it?
It makes up a very, very large percentage. I won't give it the full 100% because there are, of course, other factors I have to acknowledge.
Right.
But diet's a great place to start if you want to
Yeah.
improve how you feel.
Yeah. And when we talk about healthy living, I would imagine that's a balance between diet and exercise. Um, how much of that is diet and how much of it is exercise?
They're both so important that I can't even
Right.
separate. I know it's a cop out answer, but I have to say 100% and 100%.
Right.
There's a school of thought that you can't out exercise a bad diet. And I
Mhm.
believe that to be true, but you can't disregard exercise's importance in longevity. So there's no divvying it up like 80-20, 60-40. It's
Right.
100%, 100%.
And how much exercise is enough?
Varies. Like diets, everything's highly, highly individualized.
Right.
Um, but you would know. I mean, you want to exercise to the point that you're energized and you're not lethargic. But there is such a thing as too much exercise, like anything in life. And
Yeah.
I myself actually experienced that years ago when I was doing bodybuilding. It's a very real phenomenon. So you can overdo it.
Right. And going back to these fad diets, are
Yes,
you a believer of fad diets, I guess, under the proper circumstance?
absolutely. There's a time and a place for keto, for IF, um, for elimination diets. But the thing about those, they're typically not for the long term. And I think that they're wonderful tools to course correct, especially if you're receiving
Mhm.
competent guidance. Sometimes medical supervision is necessary, like if you're doing an extreme caloric deficit. That being said, they're not typically for the long term. So I don't believe that that should be the average person's focus. There's
Yeah.
exceptions, absolutely. But if you want long term health, I would stay away from the fad diets, unless there's some real benefit for you individually.
Yeah. And so what I've noticed a lot of times is people that get on these fad diets, let's say keto, they lose a lot of weight and then they stop the diet and then they go right back to what they were before, much quicker than it took them to lose the weight.
I used
Why
to
does
see
that
that.
happen? And how do you prevent that?
I'm so sorry to cut you off there. I used to see that all the time. Maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's 6 weeks. You have that rapid weight loss, which isn't sustainable, but it's great. You're motivated, you want to keep going, but you hit this wall or, plateau, and your body can't continue at that rate anymore.
Hmm.
Um, what was the second part of your question? Sorry, we can cut this.
They, people a lot of times they go right back. They gain the weight faster than it took them to lose the weight. And so how do you prevent that? Like, obviously the fad diets can help you maybe get to a number that you're comfortable with, but how do you stay there without staying on the diet?
You can't bounce from one extreme to the other. So if you engage in this extreme,
Mhm.
for the sake of this conversation, diet, and then you just go right back to your normal habits, there needs to be some sort of integration and something that you can maintain, almost like a weaning off. So that part is crucial. You can't just expect to maintain it once you go back to your old habits.
Right. So your advice would be maybe slowly come off the diet, but still
Yes,
maintain the healthy lifestyle, which, I mean, going back to like what we were touching on before, right? And it's been a common theme within my other podcast is, listening to our bodies, and our bodies will tell us if we're doing the right thing or not. And, when I eat certain foods, if I'm conscious of how it makes me feel, I might not eat it. For instance, I don't do well with dairy and I don't do well with gluten. My nutritionist has told me I should stay away from them. But without even my nutritionist telling me that, if I just listen to my body, if I when I when I eat dairy and when I eat gluten, I don't feel well. I get bloated and I just don't feel as good. I get tired. Um, I think that would be kind of a word of advice that I would have for people is like, listen to your body. Um, but how would you suggest, going through like the planning stages of understanding, like, planning what to eat and how to eat? Because sometimes it is difficult. We're very busy, we're out and about, and
absolutely.
I'll eat something out of convenience because I'm busy and I won't think about that, how it will make me feel. So what advice do you have for people that go through similar situations as I do?
Absolutely. I do acknowledge that it's hard with many people. The modern lifestyle makes it difficult to do this, but it's so crucial to bring mindfulness and awareness, um, everywhere we can, especially when it comes to consumption of foods. Even just something simple as checking in, where our bodies have been so warped, for lack of a better word, where we miss these internal cues like satiety, hunger. We don't really give ourselves the opportunity for our body to tell us when we are full. Sometimes we confuse dehydration for hunger, like we mix up signals all the time. So even with the busy modern lifestyle, just taking the moment to check in. When you first wake up in the morning, you're dehydrated. You should be drinking water, and
Mhm.
ideally high quality water. But that's a whole nother thing. Not going for coffee right away or something to throw off your adrenals. You need that like 90 minutes to settle in and let your hormones naturally
Right.
stabilize. And people don't even chew their foods fully.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's little small things you can do. Maybe not drinking water or other liquids while you're eating. I know that's hard and counterintuitive, but it dilutes your digestive enzymes. Not eating right before bed. These are small, manageable changes that you could make and integrate.
Yeah. Do you plan your meals?
I've done it. and I've done it for clients. Personally, no. I operate more on an intuitive basis. I think that, planning ahead can be extremely helpful. Some people benefit from the Sunday meal prep. Um, Something like making a lentil soup on a Sunday and keeping it in your freezer can
Mhm.
take away a lot of the stress of prepping food during the week. Um, Lentil soup was just a very specific example. There's many different things you could
Right.
meal prep.
Yeah. And what's the importance of a balanced diet?
Um, it's very, very important. Balance in the sense of
Uh,
diversity or micronutrients.
well, yeah, and having like greens and carbs, like complex carbs and protein, like not to be
Yes,
like heavy in one aspect of your diet.
absolutely. Your body always wants to be in balance. Your body want in balance, excuse me, not imbalance.
Right.
Um, it's always striving to achieve that. And each micronutrient serves a different purpose within the body. It carries codes and instructs your body how to function. So you need all of that. You need all of your
Yeah.
essentials. Depriving yourself of macronutrients, you're depriving your body of fuel that it needs to function properly. You can't survive off of one food group.
Yeah.
Um,
So would you recommend like somebody on keto? Would you recommend maybe a modified keto when they get where they get at least a little bit of carbs?
Totally depends on the person and what they're trying to achieve and how long they're doing it for. Um, Keto typically is one of those short-term things, and I prefer it supervised, but
Yeah.
some people are fine managing it on their own. Yes, I mean, keto, I think, is one of those things that also is maybe for people who are morbidly obese have seen some wonderful benefits from keto and helping
Right.
reset their hypothalamus, getting back. Um, the average person doesn't necessarily need to go that extreme. So a modified keto, I think, would be better for a lot of people.
For most people.
Yeah,
So the topic of our podcast today is health is a marathon and not a sprint. And I think, you've alluded to that many times is, these fad diets are maybe under proper circumstances necessary medically or are okay short term, but really like to create a healthy lifestyle, it takes a lot of work and it takes time to
mhm,
build that routine and build a habit. Um, that being said, do you feel that people are a little bit tend to be a little bit hard on themselves when it comes to their healthy lifestyle and that might cause, adverse effect by being too,
yes,
hard on yourself? And can you get into like maybe some examples of maybe past clients or people you've worked with where you've helped them kind of turn that around?
absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. The negative self-talk and the berating is detrimental. I mean, we are too hard on ourselves in a lot of ways. I see it, women especially, but I see it in men as well. And sometimes it can be traced back to a comment from a parent, teacher, coach, friend, something that planted the seed of insecurity and this feeling of inadequacy that we see play out well into our adult years and often in the form of diet. Um, Oftentimes I've seen clients when their lives are, they feel that it's out of their control. They look to something they can control, like their diet. And sometimes that manifests in the form of like very restrictive eating, um, eating way, way, way below an acceptable caloric deficit. Um, so it's important to listen to how you speak to yourself, and do you view food and exercise as punishment, as simple
Yeah.
like calories in, calories out? You want to look at your food as what it is. It's nourishment, it's life force, it's
Yeah.
what allows you to do what you enjoy doing. And you want to have a good relationship with that. I notice clients in time of high stress, they tend to store fat in a very dangerous cavity in their visceral, around their vital organs, so behind the abdominal wall. And that particular fat is metabolically active. It secretes these hormones that tells your body to store fat elsewhere. So if you're not treating the underlying root stress, whether it be negative self-talk, past trauma, acute stress now in your day-to-day, it's going to be a lot more difficult to treat,
Yeah.
to lose weight all over.
Well, I mean, why does that even happen? Why do we eat bad when we feel bad?
That is a very good question. And I'm sure there are many, a psychologist could probably explain this far better
Right.
than I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're looking for comfort. We're filling a void,
Yeah.
it's maybe we have some positive association with that food from childhood, maybe,
Yeah.
well, and then from a chemical level, typically that food is highly addictive. So we know it'll give us that rush of dopamine. We'll feel good for a minute.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah.
that's why we go for the high glycemic foods, really sugary, really
Yeah.
fatty. Those are literally addictive.
And that's a common theme for, a lot of people that I know. We tend to, when we're busy at work, maybe we don't eat bad, but when we're home, maybe not feeling great at night, we tend to eat bad, and that has repercussions. Do you have any advice for people on how to, I mean, obviously being present and understanding what they're doing to themselves, but is there any other advice you can give to people, like
Tricks to
me,
curb.
like, yeah, I do it. I'm a victim of it. So I'd like to hear what you have
Hey,
to say.
I've done it. Now, there's something about, you definitely want to avoid eating before bed. Now,
Yeah.
there's some things that are maybe easier on your stomach. You don't want to eat too close to bedtime, but if you're really in a pinch and you think you're craving food, if as long as you're not allergic and there's no,
Yeah.
if you go for a scoop of organic peanut butter, organic almond butter, teaspoon, tablespoon,
Yeah.
that might do the trick. You also might just be thirsty.
Yeah.
So drink some water, give it a chance. And ask yourself, did you eat enough during the day? Because if you're hungry at night, I mean, you're running around, maybe you don't notice, you don't pick up on the cues. And
Yeah.
then when things quiet down at night, you can actually feel it.
Right.
Maybe you do need the food, but see if you can make a more beneficial selection
Right.
food wise. Don't go for the highly processed packaged foods. So don't keep them in the house.
Right. Exactly. Don't keep the good stuff in the house. Don't buy the bad stuff. And
And
that's
don't label things as good or bad if you can, because food isn't inherently bad. I think it was, I don't know if he coined it, but Dr. Mark Hyman has this phrase that I love. It's, what is it? Food, food like substance, I think. I might not be
right.
getting that exactly right, but you want to avoid the food like substances. No food is bad. Real food,
Yeah. Yeah.
it might not be good for you right now, but it's not inherently good or
Yeah.
bad. But a food like substance, like something that's highly, highly processed, I
Yeah.
think we can say objectively is bad and should be avoided.
What's always worked for me is, planning my meals, whether it's even like, doing it first thing in the morning and just kind of planning what I will eat.
Mhm.
Um, that's always worked. And also, like, before I eat something, like thinking about how it's going to make me feel if I eat this food. If I have fried
Yeah.
chicken, I know I'm going to feel bad. Like, I've done it 100 times. I know it's going to make me feel bad. It tastes good, but I pay the price, right? So, planning has always like really helped me. But all of this, it takes like building a habit, and I've heard it takes 21 days to build a habit, only 3 days to break it. How to, I mean, obviously something usually triggers this in somebody's lifestyle. Like usually somebody has a major event, whether it's a health scare or just a, you get to a point where you're just sick of it. I don't want to feel like this low energy anymore. I want to feel better. I want to feel healthier. Is that what it takes? Like a scare or some sort of like to a point where you're like you're fed up, or is there a way to consciously like educate yourself and build that habit and actually stick with that habit?
I believe so, yes. And hopefully it doesn't come to the point of a major health scare. That's what we
Right.
want to avoid. That's what true wellness and health
Right.
is.
Yeah.
Um, I think when it comes to sticking to habits, it's so important to remember the why, the true why. You know,
Right.
it might take a couple levels to get there. It's why am I doing this? Oh, to lose weight. Okay. Why do you want to lose weight? Well, I want to feel better. Okay. Why? So I can
Yeah.
climb mountains well into my 70s and 80s. You know, when
Yeah.
you look at that long-term quality of life, maybe you want to be around, maybe you just want to like be able to play with your grandkids.
Right.
You know, it's what truly is the underlying motivator is, I think, the best way to stay on track
Yeah.
because the superficial stuff won't, even for a couple weeks, maybe.
Yeah. And I feel it, the older I get, the more, less patience, less, discipline. But really, if I take the time and reflect, just as you said, is like if I start thinking about my future and being healthy for my kids and, and just being around and, I'm we all have that opportunity to kind of make a change. And really, if we're present in the moment and understand that like every meal that we have, every action that we take has repercussions, even if it's fried chicken for a meal, like, it's okay to do that once in a while. But if
Absolutely.
when it gets to a point where it's, excessive or becomes kind of like the way of life, then there's going to be there's repercussions for all of our actions.
Yes, nothing is neutral. You could look at
Right.
food, you could look at every choice in your life as binary. It either serves you or it doesn't. It either prevents
Yeah.
disease or it causes it.
Right.
A little extreme, but for some people, that mindset,
Right.
it resonates with them.
Yeah. And if we, sometimes just take a step back and look at ourselves from the outside in, and we kind of understand like, hey, I can actually, by eating healthier, drinking more water, exercising, getting enough sleep, all those things compound together, work together for overall lifelong wellness. Obviously, diet and exercise and proper sleeping, lots of water, all that
Oh my gosh,
compounds
yeah.
to overall, our lifelong wellness. And, just like we talked about, health is a marathon. A marathon takes a lot of training, a lot of time, a lot of effort to actually, to get it right. And your wellness is no different. It takes work and training and discipline. And obviously you have to want it bad enough and understand the reason for being disciplined and doing all the things it takes. And I think, eh, doing all those things will reward you in better levels of energy, better relationships with the people around you, and more success in business and in every aspect of life. So, I know it's difficult, but it's difficult because it's worth it. And so we're here to educate people on all the things that they can do to improve their life. That's what Lifepro is about. The three questions I ask every guest is, what is one thing that you would like to teach the world? What would that be? If you could teach the world one thing.
Well, today and as of late, my big theme has been integration. So it's something I am still very much actively learning. So I don't know if I would be the one teaching it to the world, but I hope that the world can move towards a place of integration. And this might be a little bit out there, but it's so important to remember that we're just cosmic consciousness experiencing and expressing through the physical. We are not defined by our biology. And I think it's important to embrace our mortality and use it as a catalyst for adventure and also inspiration for striving for health.
I love that. That's fantastic. That's remarkable. And then my next question for you is, I'm a firm believer of reading and educating ourselves through, books, and I myself try to get through as many books as I can. That's a goal of mine. What is one book that had the greatest impact on your life, or
Most,
that's
rec- most recently, because there's many books, but
right?
a recent read of mine that had a profound impact was Anatomy of the Spirit. She did a beautiful job putting into words a concept I've been playing around with for the past couple years, and it really gives you insight into the true root cause of disease. So I think it's a very, very good read.
Yeah,
I would recommend it.
that's fantastic. And then my last question is, how can somebody follow you?
Well, I guess Instagram is the tried and true. It's more of a personal page, but if anyone has any questions, I love engaging in these type of conversations. So my Instagram is at Erin A. Manning.
Great. Erin, I had so much fun talking to you today. I hope that you found it valuable as well, and I hope everybody listening finds it valuable. I ask that everybody like, follow, and share, and help us spread the good word. Thanks, Erin, for your
Yes.
time.
Thank you so much.